And we are back. The news gang continues. And by the way, Linus, did you see what Wiper did? There was a hacking and there was prezo. Ni kama alikuwa anataka kuleta action Kibra maze.
Yvonne feels very strongly about that topic.
What do you mean I feel strongly? I mean, what was that? The timing of this announcement, and then it was 2022, sorry. But then the Wiper movement Twitter handle
Had been
says
hacked.
he will run. But I guess they were clever about it because they didn't put a year or a date. So they said, well, you know, we said he would run, just not now. But, you know, the timing of it was just off. And then Wiper releases a statement and says, you know, he's not running now, he's running in 2022. And we believe our Twitter account was hacked and we're investigating it. I mean, it just was on again, off again, not on, not off, and, you know.
But I mean, whatever it is they were doing with him, you know, unveiling him, receiving it, whatever it was the wrong time to do it. I mean, if you're going to do it, and there is a whole political environment that is going on around Kibra, even if you didn't say it, people would actually make that confusion, because that is what the whole saga ended up creating confusion, and then they would say 2022. But who cares? I mean, 2022 is how many years from now? If you're going to announce...
Did they need to make the announcement?
Yeah, just because there's a by-election in Kibra, you're saying, okay, you guys do your thing, but come 2022,
tuko na nyinyi.
What is that?
But there was some more action elsewhere.
Action.
Actually, that action started right here.
With you?
Yes.
You were at the center of it all.
At our Royal Media Services offices. Ndindi Nyoro.
Say it today, it's supposed to be said. Asante.
Nyoro. On Sunday when we were done with Kirerembe, the cops are waiting for him outside, and it's because of what had happened.
But wait first.
That's a very popular show on Inoro TV.
In case anyone has been living under a rock, you're also a star on Inoro TV on Sunday. I thought it's important to give the context.
Yes.
Carry on.
Yes. You know, people from Banana must be modest.
Where?
So that Sunday, when we learned that police officers were waiting for him outside, it surprised him. But it didn't surprise me, because what had happened in Murang'a was clearly a very tough situation. And I've seen people say this is symptomatic of what is happening in the Mount Kenya region, that the region has found itself in an environment it has not been in the last, let's say, 20 years or so. Linus.
Let's start with the incident. I found it inappropriate for the police to camp outside the Royal Media Services offices. And they've done this before. In my previous employment, we actually had to keep a member of parliament in the office for slightly longer than he was supposed to be, just because policemen are waiting for him. I think it's not a very good, not good optics to stand outside a media house to wait for people. You are the police. You know where to get these people. Surely between Murang'a and the Royal Media Services, how many kilometers are those?
Over 100.
You had all this.
And the time it happened in the morning and the evening when they come for Kirerembe.
You don't want to tell me that the police get their suspects from television, from watching television shows. That's not nice. If they wanted Nyoro, they should have gotten him where they could get him.
Even the day he was arrested on Monday, he was arrested after a TV show.
Right.
Yes. So for optics, this is not good. It reminds me of the days, you know, they would go and wait for an MP in Parliament pressings. There's something inappropriate about it, and I think the police need to start being careful about this. But going to the incident, was I surprised? No, I wasn't surprised. If you look at the church services over the last few months, you will notice a lot of politicization of the pulpit. And I wasn't surprised that this time it exploded. Yeah. The church has been letting in politicians, you know, have the microphone after the service. And, you know, to the point that Ndindi would come in and say, I've not been invited, and he wants to grab the microphone.
Actually, he was saying, I should be the MC, because this is my constituency.
Yes. So for me, the people to blame are the church. They have entertained this game, and now it's coming to bite the altar. It's so bad.
Yeah.
A Catholic church, you see those candles still on.
Yeah.
You know, the solemnity of the service has been damaged completely.
That's why Bishop.
And I think I saw, is it a priest?
Yes.
Trying to
Control,
restore the rather too
It's
late.
called Father John Kiburo.
Father John
On
should
the
be called in
pulpit.
by the bishop
Right.
for some tongue lashing because he was running a very, very bad show. What happened to the days of services like that being taken outside the church?
Actually, Jamila,
Yes.
for the many years I have watched politics, I have never seen politicians politic at Holy Family Basilica. Maybe Joe and Linas have been in this game longer than we have been, they can tell. I have not seen politicians politic at All Saints Cathedral. I have not seen
Consolata,
politicians politic at Jamia Mosque.
Oh. I don't think you'll see it at Jamia Mosque, but we're seeing it in the churches, Yvonne.
Yes,
Yeah.
and you know, we've talked about the church and politics here before. Now, judgment on the part of the priest. So, this is Ndindi Nyoro's constituency, right? You invite...
He's the local MP.
He's the local MP.
Kiharu.
Yes.
You invite...
It was Commander, yes.
Minor
Which
commander
is fine. I mean, you
nominated.
know, he can go to any church. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. But then he's coming for a fundraiser. You know the history. Unless he's not been living in this country, he knows the history between these two camps. And he has these two people. And he has a fundraiser at the pulpit, surely in the middle of the service. This is not something that could have been done after the service outside the church. You know, it's just pure judgment that you know this is oil and water, they don't mix. Everybody has understood the political temperature and climate in the country between these two groups, Tanga Tanga and Kieleweke. He knew this was a powder keg. To allow that to happen on the pulpit, in the middle of the service, by the way, the service was ended before time, eh? The service it was ended prematurely.
What happened?
So for me, that just says something about where we are and what the aim and the intent of it was. That being said, the police and how they've handled this issue, I would have expected everybody who was involved in that scuffle to have been questioned by the police.
Shuri, there's something you
Including the
have said.
priest.
Yes.
That's why I think Bishop James Wainaina decided to ban hakuna maneno ya siasa in that church, in that parish. But you spoke about something about the politics of central Kenya, Gashuri, and I think they find themselves in a place where they've not been in almost 20 years. It's a transition period. Usually, at this point, there is someone who emerges as the kingpin of the region. But at this point, there really isn't anyone who has really emerged. Because remember, President Uhuru Kenyatta is in his second and final term as president. Now, no one else has actually come out from the Mount Kenya community to take over from Uhuru. There are those who are saying that they'll wait for Uhuru to pick someone, and then now he'll give a direction about what next. But there are those who are saying, no, Uhuru muda wake umekwisha, let's try and find somewhere else to lean on.
Some say he's a lame duck.
He's a lame duck. There are those who say that. But you see now, the politics of Kenya, let's admit it, are region-based. Because if you go to Central, I mean, if you go to Western, there's someone who's seen as the kingpin. If you go to Nyanza, there's someone. If you go to Eastern, there's someone like that. That's how our politics are. We rally around particular people. And as it stands now, Central Kenya does not have someone like that to rally around. And I think that's what's bringing what we are seeing across the country, mvutano ambao unaonekana sasa. And it's a position that region has not been used to. Because remember, look at the voters in Mount Kenya. They're about, I think, 8 million. About 8 million. That is a huge number. And I think at any one point when they've all rallied behind one candidate, history has shown us it has actually favored them. But at this point in time, I think there needs someone to come out because 8 million votes are many. Now, ikikuwa fragmented, I think we'll see a situation.
But look, I mean, did anyone notice that Maina Commander in that fundraiser actually had a bundle that he said was from the president?
1 million shillings.
Bunda.
And that struck me because either he was just name dropping or actually the president sent him there and was clearly aware of the political environment in there and the circumstances, which would be an interesting one given the fact that there have been all these divisions within Jubilee and the president himself has been telling these people to, you know, shut up, stay in their constituencies, do their thing. So I think even how that whole thing is being managed, because Maina Commander, to be honest, is not an he originally comes from Muranga, but that is not his constituency. And therefore, there was was bound to be a problem.
Right.
If any politician, wherever they are in this country, if another politician comes from a different place and comes into your turf with lots of money in some, whether it's a church or a school or whatever, there's nothing that unsettles a politician than another politician coming into their constituency with money. And so there was always going to be this fight. And so, I mean, this is not to excuse the really, really despicable picture that we saw in that church, but I think that anybody who understands the politics of this country would have predicted that if that thing happened, there was going to be a problem.
Let me just give that historical perspective, because this is an old script that has been used before. I remember when there was the politics of cooperation between NDP and KANU. And Raila Odinga had moved to join and work with President Moi. James Orengo was not for it. Yeah. And I covered a fundraiser.
I remember that story.
That was organized by force, if you can put it that way.
I remember the
in
stones.
Ugunja Market.
I remember the stones.
You remember the stones? Ugunja Market is right in the center of Ugenya constituency. The local MP, James Orengo, was against it. But Raila Odinga, the Minister for Energy, is coming. And he had with him the power of the administration. The PC, Provincial Commissioner at the time, was called Peter Aburu. And he was right there. We spent a whole morning with Orengo and Professor Nyang' Nyong'o. They are trying to get to the market. But the police were blocking the way all the way to Ugunja Market.
Was it SDP at the time?
Fundraisers were used as a way of taking the battle to the local MP. Do it to spite him. Which I think was, in a way, what was at play in Murang'a. Let Commander go and do this fundraiser in that Tanga MP stronghold, Uchokozi. And it works that way. So what the judgment call that Ndindi got wrong was to cause chaos inside the church. He should still have respected the fact that it's a church. But politically, he had all the right to fight back that Harambee.
But there's something that we probably should not lose. The place of police officers in this whole scenario.
I was getting to that.
Because you could clearly tell that there was some there were some strings that were being pulled. It is not very normal for such a fundraiser to be attended by minor commander and the rest. County commander is there. County commissioner is around. And there has been talk of the county commissioners and county commanders being asked not to attend functions presided by Deputy President William Ruto in the Mount Kenya region and other areas. So when commander is addressing a function and he's accompanied by the county commander and the Deputy President is addressing a function and probably those guys are being told
accompanied by
it should tell you something.
and that is also what I was going to now with the drama now surrounding his arrest. It may emerge, and the picture would be that the police is being used, to settle these political scores. So the scuffle happens in church in the morning, and they have the whole day, and they look for him after Kiririmbi. The next day, he has the entire day, by the way,
and actually he was in Murang'a the whole day.
And he was in Murang'a the whole day, but then they choose to arrest him in the evening. Then what happens? He, goes to the police, he presents himself there, and then after that, his lawyer, Irungu Kang'ata, who's a senator, says, okay, we had a talk and made a phone call, and that this matter has been sorted out. So can we just first talk about how unprocedural that is? Was he going to be charged? Yes. Phone calls were made, and this matter was hushed. Could
it be possible then that phone calls were made for him to be arrested?
And that's exactly what it is. Right. And for sure, Ndindi is not a man, based on his previous statements, that attracts sympathy for what he's going through. However, legally, the police are starting to look like they are being used to settle political.
Not starting.
And you
and
remember,
and
if you recall, in fact, earlier this year, there were those members of the Tanga Tanga who had their police withdrawn.
Yep.
I did an editorial on that on this very show. So it's starting to look like a trend for those people that are in Tanga Tanga, that the police is being used, you know, to teach them a lesson.
Not starting, Yvonne.
And for me, that, you know, that's really not a good picture.
It is a continuation.
Yeah.
Where the police, and you look at the last 2 elections, and even election campaigns, the police are turned into some party youth wingers.
Right.
Only that this time it's not the opposition taking the hit, but it's the opposition within, and that is Tanga Tanga. They have been on the receiving end of what NASA and the opposition parties were on the receiving end in 2017. And none other than Ndindi Nyoro himself cheered, you know, the police. And some other MP, I remember saying, you know, import more tear gas and all that.
It was himself, actually.
It was him, yeah.
Yes,
there is
enough
enough money in the
tear gas.
supplementary budget.
to buy tear gas. Look at that.
Yeah.
Look at that.
But
and now it's turning.
shoes on the other.
But overall, I think the police should be careful with this kind of trend. And not just the police, but also the senior public servants. Because democracy doesn't work that way, with open partisanship of the state instruments.
Exactly.
I'm just cringing, imagining if Kenya had a system like Britain, where, remember, between David Cameron and now Boris Johnson, it's been, you know, 3 short terms, 3 prime ministers, and this one also looks like it will sell long. Now, if this was the behavior of the British police, David Cameron would still be prime minister. The police will be tear gassing the supporters of Theresa May, and Boris Johnson will be, you know, facing expulsion from Jubilee.
Yeah, and one thing that I wanted to say, Francis, that my experience over the years is that this kind of approach to dealing with perceived dissidents within the party usually has the opposite effect from what is intended. They actually lionize these people instead of breaking them as.
See, when Ndindi Nyoro says, my life is in danger, and now suddenly he looks like a martyr.
And actually, he compares himself
to
Kenneth
Matiba.
Which is an insult. It is an absolute insult. You don't do that.
It is.
You can't compare Ndindi Nyoro with Kenneth Matiba. Kenneth Matiba stood for greater causes. Kenneth Matiba didn't stand for narrow, you know, bomb them, tear gas them kind of politics. Kenneth Matiba stood for multipartism across the country, open spaces. Kenneth Matiba would resonate anywhere in this country, wouldn't Ndindi?
I think the only thing
they share, according to me, is that they are human beings from Kiharu.
But even as we probably take this home, there's something interesting I don't know whether you guys realized. That night at Kamukunji police station, when the Jubilee members of parliament went there to wait for Ndindi because there was talk of him being brought to Kamukunji police station, I picked 3 sound bites from Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah, Honorable Oscar Sudi, and Honorable Kipchumba Murkomen. They were saying that power is temporal. Yeah, when they were accusing the leadership of the office of the president of using state resources, state machinery to, you know, deal with what they are calling political dissent. And I also realized that not so long ago, when the same force was being used against NASA members of parliament, it was fine at that time. But now when the shoe is on the other foot, probably doesn't fit very well.
And someone says that when Ngunjiri Wambogo disrupted Kiunjuri's meeting,
nothing happened.
He wasn't arrested on Kiririmbi.
And Rahab Mukami, and Rahab Mukami, the woman of the other day.
But was it Kiririmbi?
Are you people saying that my show on Inoro TV is a venue for arrest?
No. It is a police identification parade. So
on that line up, and
we've been looking for this guy.
On that note, we need to take this home, and it's time for the final words.